No, we just want to.
I appreciate that, but just quickly, although at our meeting next month, I'm sorry to say that I have to bring back wording to talk about the trash enclosures again. Because someone was quick to point out that we probably should have included multifamily, not single family. And when we did said no residential, we should have done single family residential. Because we have a lot of potential future multi-family, and we also have a lot of multifamily in this town, and those people are the ones that are kind of came and complained.
Do you think of 2 units? It's
Yeah,
gonna really
I say
be
2
a lot
units
more.
above.
I think maybe more
More
than 2.
than 2.
More than 2. 2 units, you're going to
I
get
think we should
3 or 4 trash. I mean, you could have a residential.
You know, these people send me pictures, I'm sorry to say, bags of garbage, like, you know what it looks like.
Yeah.
So I think a single-family home is the only one that we don't have to worry about, and I think the rest of the people, I don't think it's that big a deal to put up some kind of 8
Are
foot
we-
something that
Except,
encloses.
are we considering, because it has been raised as part of this POD process, in-law apartments? In which
Yes.
case that would be a 2-family?
I don't think that is a
That's
2-family.
still single family with an accessory
Right.
use.
Is
That's
that
different.
is that the way they
Yeah.
would consider it, as opposed to 2-family?
Yeah.
But I think the thing with the
Well, that
2-family
you would
is, I
have-
mean, it's mostly rentals, and people don't care as much, and I think it's okay. I mean,
Well-
we're here to make things look better, not to make it so that some landlord collecting rent doesn't have to put up some
Yeah,
kind
again,
of
this would be for
barrier.
any new 2 families being constructed, as opposed to.
I think it should be as many as possible, but yes, that's what the law says.
Do we need a hearing on that?
I think I'll bring it up. I'll bring it to the next meeting, and so I think it was a good point. Let's just say got a lot of pictures of it's garbage, but anyway, because nobody thought I knew what garbage looked like. Okay. Let's.
I wonder if a town ordinance might be better than a zoning reg change for 2-family garbage, you know?
I think we just need to address it, and I'm certainly open to suggestions on how you want to do it. But I think it's not our job to save $100 for somebody who has a rental income. I think it's more important that our town looks clean.
Yeah.
Except
So-
an ordinance would apply to everything. There's no such thing as a pre-existing use for an ordinance. That's the difference.
Wait a minute, there's no such thing as what?
Pre-existing use
Yeah,
for an
right.
ordinance. An ordinance is an ordinance. You have to comply with the law.
I think Buddy has a good point.
Yeah. If it's possible to do it that way.
So then it does affect everybody.
It would affect everybody as soon as the effective date of the ordinance.
So I think Buddy has a really good point, but I'm going to tell you right now, that is not what Buddy meant to do.
I'll take the credit.
It's amazing how you can read somebody's mind. I didn't realize that was.
No, he was very clear. He wanted to make sure, this only is for future, and boy, he was saying all those things.
But-
And then he came up with the solution that
the
takes
ordinance-
care of all the pretty things.
That's right.
So I think it's a great idea.
I'll take the credit.
And who does the ordinances? No, we don't do that.
Towns, first selectman. Selectman. Yeah.
We could probably do that. All right, let's, I'm glad everybody could make it. Who would like to start?
Well, don't they have to?
Well, one of them. I'm not talking to you. You're
I
not
didn't
starting.
see.
What were the last couple of booklets we got?
Huh?
What were the last couple of booklets we got?
I will, before they start, I mean, just as a our next meeting, well, supposedly, unless we decide to do something different, is a public meeting on the 30th.
30th is.
And I did talk to Michael today, and I was saying that it was very important. I mean, he concurred with me, I'm just telling you, I had a conversation, that I think the things that, I mean, this is still a draft, obviously, but I think at the 30th meeting, we should have, I think it's important we have our action parts of these chapters that we're willing to put out there for discussion. So if we can kind of keep that in mind as we're moving through tonight, I mean, we talked about, we may want to change the wording and things like that, but I think the general idea of the action items are really what I think people are going to be looking for. And then, maybe you guys remember, because Michael's the one that said it, but he couldn't remember the terminology he used. Because I think it was you that asked the question, how do you get from an action, a suggested action, to actually doing it? And he inferred something about there's a list, there's a map that shows you how to get from A to B. You remember that?
Yep.
Oh, good. So what was the word Michael used?
I remember I raised the issue, but I don't remember the word he used. Roadmap? No. You were talking in terms of you were going to identify who had responsibilities.
Yes, that's correct. For the record, I'm Michael Looney with my Looney McBroom. Have Tim Baird with me here, one of the planners in our office also. Yes, that would be...
The primary responsibility for implementing each of these tasks.
Correct. That would be the sort of the capstone piece to the end of the document, which would be the actual action agenda, which would take these items that we've identified as ongoing, near-term, mid-term, long-term, laid them out by topic, and then identified a commission, department, board, agency that would be responsible for implementing these actions over the life of the plan, the 10-year period. So that's what I was referring to.
Yes. I did remember it.
I know. All right.
Okay. So tonight, actually, to kind of boil things down, what Tim and I have put together is about a 15-page handout that is just the action plan items, the various items. As they stand now, based upon the feedback and edits we've received from this commission over the last 2 meetings, and just in our taking what we've gathered from the discussion here and trying to reword certain elements of them that we thought might make things clearer, might make things more in line with what you had in mind. Obviously, there were some action items that everyone seemed to feel, we probably shouldn't go with that one. Others that it was felt needed to be added in. So we've tried to do that for all. Tim's going to hand those out now. We just finished this up the end of the day yesterday as we cobbled together all of the edits we've received.
Yeah, so I'm a little hesitant to say this on TV because I might have forgotten something. But did I forward you the letter from the Land Trust?
Yes, you did. Yes, we have the letter from the Land Trust. One thing I want to point, just a couple of little...
I panicked a little today.
Housekeeping items. We have the Land Trust letter, which we're working into the open space chapter. So that's we've got that in house now. I also late this afternoon received some additional edits and comments from the chairwoman of CUPOP and from the Conservation Commission chair that we're also just starting to digest around 4:30 this afternoon. So I've reached out to them and said, we'll probably speak tomorrow and go over what they had sent and get that into place where it's appropriate. So the open space and recreation also, I should mention, had some email miscommunication over the summer, and we hadn't had a chance really to speak to the Recreation Commission. So we are on the agenda for their September 22nd meeting. We have had the Recreation plan that the commission put together some time ago, and we've been working with that, but we really wanted to go and have a conversation with them. So we're making sure that we're doing that before we have the public meeting on the 30th.
You'll see that the Recreation actually did a pretty thorough presentation to us, and of what their needs were, et cetera.
Yes.
And so who, and is it us, I'm hoping it's you, that meshes, because one of the things that, like Coopop was talking about, and the Conservation Commission, things like which properties would be good for designation as recreation, et cetera. So is there a way to be putting that together? And then on the same subject, again, and we've kind of all talked about this all the time, just because recreation wants this much, we may, Chris, we may only be saying this much.
Right.
I mean, I don't want to put parameters on it, but I mean, I'm just wondering, does it make sense that we're going to put those two things, those things together?
Yes, we absolutely have to, and that's on us to do that as part of our work, and to sort of get those two sets of opinions and points of view and marry them together into one document. You know, part of that is we always want as much input and feedback from commissions and boards as possible, and from the general public. But then there's also an element of our professional experience, what we think would work best, what we recommend for the town as well, that comes into play. So it's it's a dynamical situation, but it's one we've pretty much had to do in every plan of conservation and development, whether it's this topic or economic development or housing. There's usually one section where we have to take a lot of different opinions and kind of synthesize them all into a comprehensive chapter. So that's not out of the ordinary, and certainly something we're capable of doing.
I thought so.
That we had done it before, or that we're capable.
Right.
Okay, so I don't know if we want to go line by line through this, but I think maybe if we just look at some of the major points and some of the bold headings.
We don't have this on the computer, right?
No, we just finished this up late yesterday and getting everything. Do we have an extra copy?
You can just have this one.
Yeah, we'll work off ours.
Hey, Chris. Just saying hi.
One edit I just picked up this afternoon when I was flipping through the copies that we're going to be making is down at the bottom of the first page on housing and demographics on the assessed proposals for clustered development on the country club. I think we want to get in there over 55 housing was going to be a point that we had in there that we just slipped through our net of editing. So I just wanted to point that out. Again, most of these items are ones that we've already previously discussed. We haven't added a huge number of new topics, but it's really just in terms of the wording, removing a couple of them that we kind of in our dialogue decided we didn't feel were really should be in there going forward. And probably the one that was the most complicated in terms of edits was the chapter 2, which is the third page, the village and economic development. We made a number of changes to these, adding in the role of the Economic Development Commission working in concert with an economic development staff person who we're recommending in the plan in doing some of these activities. I do think we have some discussion about creating live-work spaces, and I think and that's right now in the economic development section, and is more of a long-term action item. I think that's something that in the village action plan, I think we want to get a little bit more specific about in terms of, what we had talked previously at one of our meetings about tracking down examples and, what that means and, how big structures we're talking, and probably identify areas in the village, but, possibly on our village map of possible locations where that would make sense, getting some graphics in there in terms of, what exactly are we talking about. We have one graphic in here, but I think there are a number of examples that we could cite in there. And on that the village map, in support of it, I think just looking at it today, that adding some graphics, some sort of like little visual items that sort of outline what we're talking about for these different areas and what concepts we're trying to get across, would probably be helpful to someone just picking this up and reading a POCD for the first time. So I think those might be, just in preparing for the meeting today, some things that that I think have been mentioned before through the course of our several meetings, but kind of coalesced in my mind as things we should probably do going forward with this. We expanded some of the discussion about finding space and funding and partners for business incubators. Looking at
Are
places.
you looking at a particular page, or are you?
Yeah, this is page. We should have put page numbers. Should have put page numbers at the bottom. This would be page 4.
I'm just trying to follow along. Just trying to follow along.
We have time to go through this. I mean,
Yeah.
so
Okay,
it's
well,
difficult for us,
we're gonna- I
Yes.
know.
it's difficult for me to
I
respond to
agree.
your comments when I haven't had a chance to absorb
I
what
agree.
is here.
I agree.
Yeah.
But I know
well,
we
let's-
need to be efficient with our
Yeah.
time.
Well, let's do what we're doing, and then I think when we get to the end, we're going to decide how we want to.
I've got a,
I agree with you.
When we get to the end, we'll then decide what we should have done? Is that what you're saying?
No, the end of our meeting, but because I think we're going to want more time to look at this afterwards, and the question is, do we need to have more of it? How do we get that information to them before the 30th? That's what I'm talking about.
Right.
So I figured out, I'm assuming they're going to go through everything with us, and
Okay.
we can kind of take
we want
notes.
to go through it chapter by chapter thoroughly.
I'm just going through I'm just letting him run the meeting.
Yeah, I totally agree that this takes some time to digest, and our concern was trying to get as much prepared for this meeting as we could.
Yeah.
In the interest of trying to get you everything that we had that even from last Tuesday's meeting, trying to get those elements that we had discussed in there.
And also keep in mind, the 30th is just a meeting, it's just a draft. I mean, it's not like anything is signed off on.
Right. I mean,
But it'd be better to get our input as much as possible. so that you
Absolutely.
don't- So you don't catch all the abuse on the 30th.
absolutely. And
All right.
yeah. So on page 5, the 5th page, the village map, we've also, based upon our discussion last Tuesday, identified the north and south sides of Lucy Street, and then the stretch along Amity Road, pretty much from the New Haven line, going up almost to Bradley Road, as being areas of redevelopment potential. Sort of differentiate them from development opportunity sites. These are areas that once you get new zoning in place, that over time you would expect to see reinvestment changes in the development there. But they're a little bit different than development sites, which are something that might be something more of a more near-term opportunity versus redevelopment areas, which once you get zoning in place, can, depending on property ownership and the market, can take some time to change in terms of use and built form and things like that. You get the zoning in place, and then there is a little bit of a waiting game in terms of having property owners take advantage of new regs in redeveloping their properties. But we wanted to highlight those areas. That was a point that I think that we had raised.
So, and what was our reason for not including the parking area at where the Starbucks is? In the lower right there.
Parking area.
Right here.
We were really focusing on the sort of automotive related use to the back there, Crest, and then the stretch coming around to the corner of Lucy. That was a particular parcel that was identified in the last meeting as something we should include in the opportunity as a development opportunity.
And why don't you
Site.
think this is, well, so,
There's nothing for lease there. It's a pretty viable commercial site, right?
Yeah.
I don't, what are we saying by not what are we saying by not labeling it as anything? We like it?
Well, we could have that as more of a long-term redevelopment area type designation.
I mean, because you picked, you left that out, so why wouldn't, what's the difference between that and the property behind it, which is also a strip center?
Yes, the one back, right up here as you go towards Lucy. I mean, we could certainly include it. It wasn't in any way sort of a statement on one property is better than the other.
No, I wasn't thinking about
Could certainly be streetscape improvements there. So those are opportunity sites with the hash mark, right?
Yes, correct. That's
it.
correct.
Yeah, so I don't get that. I mean, what's the difference between that site that's not included in it and the Crest site, which is also, I mean, it's not like these are these are not like these are vacant sites.
No.
I mean, they're businesses. I mean, the brewery just moved
Just
onto
I was
this
gonna
piece
say
of
that,
property.
yeah.
So we don't want to, I mean, I do think that it would be cool if something could be built along Amity Road in front of the brewery. I think that would be kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
Just to do a little traffic calming in there and everything like that, but I don't know how we actually say that other than it's just a potential development site. I don't see what the difference is between, for instance, the Crest and the brewery part and the parking lot in the Starbucks building.
Okay.
It doesn't, I mean, I'm open to understanding it, but I don't get it.
The Crest site was one that was, I'm trying to remember if that came out of the charrette as being identified by folks as a potential
It was identified in both the charrette and on the survey as people.
Yeah, I
have been
agree, but
wondering
I mean,
about
I
the
think that
potentials there.
that whole piece of property from Lucy to the Parkway and everything is,
Mhm.
could be something.
Right.
Sure.
I guess that's my point.
Okay.
So, yeah, I agree. I think that the Crest is a potential, but,
Okay.
Yeah, and I'd extend the streetscape improvements all the way to the town line on both Amity and Litchfield Turnpike.
Okay.
yeah, I agree.
Right?
I agree.
All right.
Yep, absolutely. Well, actually, a lot of them a lot of it is,
Isn't it up with?
a lot of it is landscaped, actually, already. But still, I agree. I think that, I mean, I think it should pretty much go from the, what is this right here, this line?
That's the town line.
That's the
isn't it?
town
Oh, from the town line right up to the Sincola Motors. And also, we've just, I think maybe it could stop there, but at the, where the right approach is. I'll just keep saying that. Bradley Road. But remember, we've now also just approved a change of use for the 4 buildings there to also be retail as well as office.
Okay.
Okay.
All these 4 buildings here,
Yeah. That's what we did last week.
Yeah, I'd actually keep the streetscape improvements going up the hill there.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I did see that that piece, and I think it was in the paper about the retail. Yeah.
But up where that little strip mall is on the left, you know, where the UPS and FedEx and
That's
mailbox
what-
and all that, you know, those
It's all the
two.
way down.
That's all the way down.
That's,
I'm going up there.
Where,
Yeah, they're not
where's the
up there.
UPS store?
UPS is down here.
No,
Oh,
the
it's-
boxes, there's
Oh, you're
UPS
right,
boxes,
that's right.
FedEx box, mailbox.
That is true, actually. Why isn't this,
It's ugly. I mean, it's just
why
a bunch
wouldn't,
of
and it's
talk.
just a bunch of parking lots. I mean, why wouldn't any of that be considered what you're referring to as redevelopment area? What do we call, what's the definition of, what's your definition of a
Strip
redevelopment
offices.
area?
Yeah, there's strip offices.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's
The redevelopment areas are areas,
It's just, yeah.
the redevelopment areas are areas we see sort of gradually, property by property, changing either use or building form or both over a longer term period. That's why we've identified the corridor going up Amity Road and Lucy Street in particular, just because of the mix of uses there. That doesn't necessarily mean that it couldn't be extended beyond that. Those were just the primary areas that we had identified. If you folks feel that that's not adequate coverage, that's fine as well.
Well, is it advantageous for us to go up even further? I mean, because it's already commercial area? I mean, what's the disadvantage of doing that?
The disadvantage of going further up Amity,
Yeah, because if you go past that.
go past Bradley.
If you go past Bradley,
Mhm.
is that where Sincola is? Is that Sincola?
Sincola is the hash mark.
Okay,
Just
fine.
before
So,
Bradley.
so after Sincola, I mean, that's all commercial. I mean, why is that any different redevelopment area than anything below Sincola?
Well, if you're gonna do that, you have to do, the One Bradley Road too. I mean, why would you differentiate? Only because it's newer?
Where's One Bradley Road?
That's the
Complex of four.
The four buildings
four buildings.
across the street. We looked at those as being the office buildings. I think they're, correct me if I'm wrong, 2 or 3 stories high. They're single.
2 stories. 2-story.
2-story.
Single.
Just built into the hillside.
Okay.
One Bradley. They're all.
No, I'm not talking
No,
about
no,
one,
no.
not One Bradley.
Not One
I'm
Bradley.
talking about where like Caldwell Banker is.
Those are two.
Yeah, okay.
That's what I thought they were talking
Yeah,
about.
2 stories.
Yeah.
Um,
No, but Buddy asked about why then when you do it across the
Yeah.
street.
No, I'm waiting for the answer too.
I mean, we see the sort of the village edge being right at that point, right around Bradley, and those office buildings. They're, I think, less inclined to be a redevelopment area rather than areas that have small single-story buildings that are have the parking towards the front along the street.
Are those all rentals or are those condos?
Which ones?
The ones that we just.
I think those are all rentals, aren't
One Bradley is a mix of condos and
they?
rentals.
Mhm.
More commercial condos.
Yeah. Okay.
What defines an opportunity site?
Those are locations where, just based upon their position in the, the geography of the village, are areas where you could get, something rather notable in a reasonable period of time. If it's, for example, that lot on Lucy Street that we have hatched, just by the fact that it's not developed as anything right now, you could get something very nice there in relatively short order.
Totally understand if it's not developed now.
Right.
But we're talking about including areas that are developed already.
Mm-hmm.
Are we saying then that, and I don't understand, I just want to understand this, are we saying then by including an area that it is, if we had our druthers, it should be something else?
The other ones that we have that are currently developed
Yeah. And
are sites that we feel if you redevelop them and made an effort to do so, they could really be sort of anchor points for the village, just based upon their location. That's the perfect one to talk about is the one on Selden Street. That we have hatched out there. That is just, if you could get something a little bit more oriented towards the street, a little bit more pedestrian, would serve as a great anchor point on this end of the village, with Lucy Street kind of cutting across to another set of buildings where, if they were redeveloped for a higher, more intensive use, could really sort of anchor that side of the village as well.
Are we going to be suggesting that redevelopment areas would have tax credits, or is there, encouragement? I mean, is there any?
There wouldn't be any
like that?
specific sort of program tied to it. And maybe redevelopment areas, because of the statutory language of what a redevelopment area is, we should actually rename that and have a different name, just to avoid any confusion.
And also, would the implementation part of this thing, would it make sense that we would want to change the regulations in these areas to encourage creating buildings closer to the street, parking behind? I mean,
yeah, I believe that's what our revised village
okay.
village zoning.
The village
Think of-
mixed use in particular
All right.
would accomplish there.
Could you just say
Sure.
again what the difference is between a redevelopment area and an opportunity site? That's okay.
Redevelopment areas we see, once the zoning is in place, over the long term, could, on a parcel by parcel basis, be developed into something different, designed differently,
Than what it
closer to
is.
the street. The opportunity sites are ones that are, I don't want to say higher priority, but ones that could have either could be developed relatively quickly based upon the fact that they're not developed, or if they are developed, if they were developed as something else, would make a kind of a statement use or statement development in the village based upon their locations.
And would this be in the, would this area be included in like some kind of a pattern book or something?
Yes, actually, I have, because of our discussion last time, I brought an example. It's actually called a style book. Tim, if you want to start that around. That's an example of something we did about 4 or 5 years ago for the town of Marlborough. Again, Marlborough has about, it's pretty similar in terms of population as Woodbridge, being about 8, 9, 10,000 people now, I believe. They have a crossroads of, their town center is really the crossroads of 2 state routes, 3-digit state routes, right near Route 2, which funnels directly through Glastonbury into East Hartford. So they're sort of the next stop down from Glastonbury for development to go as it comes out of Hartford. And they had us look at their entire village area and assess the market, what the supportable uses were, and then come up with a plan for how to change their zoning so that they could get more village-oriented development. I mean, before we started, they had a small gas station and a historic tavern restaurant at their sort of 100% corner where the 2 routes came together as a crossroad. And then some other uses that were really auto-oriented, and it didn't really have a village feel. So part of what we did is, in updating the zoning for that area, was to come up with sort of an architectural and design guide for what sort of development and styles that the town was looking for. So we worked with the town to put that together, both with our planning group and our landscape architects, contributed a lot to that as well. So that's the sort of thing we're thinking of when you mentioned pattern book. There are a number of different variations of it out there. Some are a little bit more architectural. Some are a little bit more landscape-ish in their nature. Some are kind of a hybrid between the two.
I don't see this pattern book as being, you have to do this. I see it as, these are some ideas and how we want things to look.
Right. It's not
Yeah.
not intended to be prescriptive,
Right.
as much as it is more of
Right.
a lot of times developers will come in and be like, well, I'd like to develop this site, but I'm not exactly sure what what are people looking for, and if they can
Or I'm also concerned of developers coming in and saying, this is
what
what
you're
we're
getting.
willing to do, and we
Yes.
want to say, no, that's
No,
not what we want
we
you
want
to
something
do,
that looks like
because
this.
we've already looked at this, so, yeah.
Exactly. So I think it's an important tool when you're redoing zoning in a village area to have something like that. So yeah, I would definitely see that being part of the work in terms of revising the zoning for the village area.
And so then, why wouldn't we include the lots to the left of the Selden Street Plaza,
To the left of Sills.
or below it?
Below, going towards the New Haven line?
Yes.
Okay.
I just think we're gonna get a lot of private property owners who are gonna come in
I
and they're gonna
think-
say, what the hell are you proposing? And,
Well, I know that's why I'm trying to understand
You dare to tell
what-
me, well, I mean, I just think, maybe you rank it and the empty lots are obvious, right? Sure. Develop them quickly if possible, they're gonna make a statement. But the ones that are privately owned, Alan Rice was in here a month ago. He's redoing his place. We're gonna tell him his place is prime for redevelopment?
No,
I mean,
I
I
think,
just-
yeah, I don't think that's what it's saying. That's why I think it's probably not a good word, like, as you
Yeah.
pointed out.
Yeah.
I think that what it's saying, I think if anything, it's going to give more opportunities on those lots. I don't see it as a hindrance on those lots. And I don't think that, it's gonna affect Alan at all, because he's doing his building right now, and,
I think it's in the presentation.
yeah, and the word redevelopment is, I think, not a good word.
Right.
But
Upscale
It's not really working. or-
even opportunity, well, you have the
I think it's just a
site you
change
wanna
of regs. I
improve.
think we're trying to change our regs to expand the possibilities on those
Right.
lots. I don't think we're trying to,
Right, we're trying to open up
Right.
additional opportunities for
on those
development
lots, right.
on those lots.
So
Not be more.
I agree, that's what,
restrictive.
it's a bad word.
Prime pedestrian areas. I don't know.
I guess there's 3 parcels that I have questions for. When you're going down Lucy to the intersection of 69, you don't have anything, there's still at least 2 parcels that go towards 69 that you don't have in what's currently the redevelopment area.
To the right of the. that
As you
little
look at
box.
it, to the
That
right,
little
To
yes.
the
box.
right?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
One of those is a house, and one
Right.
of those is a current house, but it's an office with an apartment above. And then, where else was I going? Oh, on Lucy Street, in the middle of there, on that same side, there's the senior housing, which you've got earmarked as redevelopment, and I don't think that's going anywhere at this point. So you may
Okay,
need
we
to,
can clip that out.
Yeah, I would,
Take that out. Okay.
and then up on Landon Street, on the right side to the top, I think that's the
wait a
Mother
minute, Landon
Church's
Street,
parking
Landon?
lot that you've got ID'd as a opportunity site, and I think that's their parking lot.
Yep.
Yeah, that's
So I don't think that's going
Mother
anywhere.
Church isn't gonna like that.
Wait a minute, where are we looking?
This hatched
Oh, yes.
mark.
Yeah, the
No, I think their parking lot is on the other side.
No,
Both.
parks on both sides.
Oh.
Yeah, it's parked on both
And
sides.
they
So how did you
park on the
pick that?
road.
Actually, that's been on here.
yeah, we picked that because that would be
Good parking spot.
in
It would be impactful if a change were made there. I
it'd be
mean,
a shared parking.
yeah, it
It
could be,
definition.
you could have a 3-story building or 4-story building with some sort of parking on the ground level, some stuff on the upper floors. It's just because of it being at a good intersection, it offered some potential for.
But it's
For-
owned by the church,
Yes.
and they use it for parking,
Yep.
just so you know.
I know.
Okay.
They'll get some good cash.
Perhaps so. I guess that was those three things, okay.
Reading to jump around it out here to chapter 1.
Sure.
The Country Club of Woodbridge is obviously a hot spot. We've had town meetings on it, and one of under near-term action, I think we're limiting ourselves. It says assess proposals for cluster development on the Country Club of Woodbridge property. I think we're limiting ourselves to only cluster development. We're not looking at other options for uses of the Country Club of Woodbridge. Are we better to say assess potential uses for the Country Club of Woodbridge, including cluster development?
Well, I think the cluster development is we have that in there because of what we found in the conversations was a very strong desire to maintain a fairly considerable amount of open space. So that sort of leads you to the next step, which is if you're going to have development, it's going to have to be situated somewhere that's not spread across the whole site, and I think that's what we were trying to get at with this wording.
Right. But again, I personally think we're limiting ourselves. We, as a town, people may decide that, hey, it's best kept as a 18-hole golf course and not do anything with it, or it's best that we keep it as open space. I think, we should include others.
I think doesn't prevent that.
All this says is review and consider costs and benefits. It doesn't say it's good, and it doesn't say it's bad.
No, it actually doesn't say it has to be.
Exactly.
I think it just says that if something like that comes along, then we can consider it, as opposed to if we don't address it. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong,
Yeah.
we do POCDs.
Yeah.
If we don't address it, then we're pretty much saying no, which really isn't what everybody in town is saying. So I
Right.
think that this kind of covers everything.
Right. If you have it in the POCD and then something does come along,
Right.
you've
It's not to
got
say we're gonna accept
basis.
anything.
Right. There's no finality to the
But it
outcome.
does say you're not going to assess proposals that are not about cluster development.
In that particular chapter, and I guess my question would be, since I haven't reviewed the end point here, that building, obviously, in different people's views, is either useful or not useful, or we need it or we don't need it. And so some of us were actually at the final pool get-together over the weekend. And one of the comments that was made to me was looking at the roof, which is actually in this little proposal that's going around that Larry has now. Wouldn't that make a wonderful place for having all of your rooftop opportunities for, energy efficiency? If you could put some, because it's a huge roof. I don't know if it's a good roof or not, but people have talked about the building as not being functional, so to speak, and needing repairs. And so I think the idea of the assessment of proposals at the housing level, which is fine for chapter 1, but there's a recreational component too, because the recreation department now has taken over the management of the pool. And frankly, I'm pretty familiar with the building, and there's lots of space in there. And there may be a desire at some point of time, depending upon what happens with the rest of these proposals, to utilize all or a portion of that building, some of it for recreational use. So, if you put it in a different place, is what I'm saying.
It would be in
It would
town
be-
facilities.
It would be in the town facilities, and I'm not sure if it's there or not. All I'm saying is that I think maybe what buddy's talking about is you want to be sure it's in all the right
Yeah,
places.
no open space as well,
Exactly.
That's an option in open space.
Exactly. Yeah, so maybe be sure that you have it in all those
Yeah,
places.
that there's the cross-referencing.
Or weren't you suggesting just cross out clustered? Because clustered there limits it. If you're assessing proposals for development, that will include clustered, but if you're assessing proposals for clustered development, we're limited to clustered development. I thought that's what you were suggesting, broaden it so it's not so narrow.
But cluster would require changes. It's already in a residential zone, and a change would not be necessary. Zoning change wouldn't be necessary. They wanted to put in just regular one-family homes.
Maybe it should be
But this
referred
doesn't talk
to.
about a zoning change, it just says review and consider costs
about
and
where-
benefits.
Well, that's the implementation part of it.
How about you
Yeah.
put higher density?
Exactly, that's what I was just gonna say. Instead of clustered.
Okay.
It
Some
says
people
proposals.
don't like the word cluster.
Well, it is, I think it's actually a little limiting. I mean, I don't think you're making a bad point. I mean, I think it's just to consider higher density.
On a portion.
Do we want to, and then do we also want, were you saying something, Alan? Did I just cut you off? Okay, sorry. I did. Maybe not. Also, do we want to address a 55 and over? Are we going to do that anyplace?
That was my first point when I was starting off, that we were going to put that in and just slip through our editing net of proposals for 55 plus housing development.
In there, in that area.
Right.
But I would not have it limited to that.
No, I think it
Yeah.
should be allowed.
Right, it's something, yeah, that you would be looking at, right.
It's something that's a possibility there.
That's a possibility.
I mean, going along with the open space part, I mean, I don't think we can say part of it. It'd be kind of nice to say just one part can be considered for development, the rest of it has to stay open space, but I don't think we can. I don't think we should.
I wanted to talk briefly about the village district on Bradley Road, the development on both sides that was approved for 55 and older housing.
Right.
Do we want to, in here it talks about, changing the village regs to include, multi-families, that type of thing. Do we want to keep that area, those parcels designated as adult living so that we are not, I mean, it's a large development, we're not going to potentially burden our school systems.
I mean, I don't know what everyone else thinks, but I mean, I go back to, I don't think most people want to live in a 55 and over anymore. I think people that are 55 and over want to live where everybody lives. They just want higher density, they want to see people every day. And so,
Fieldstone Village is, a very successful development in Orange, and I know there's a lot of Woodbridge residents that are moving over there, where they would probably prefer to stay local.
And the question
you'd only be able to build 2 of those here.
The question you can ask is, are they going there because it's 55 and over, or it's because it's downsized and that's the only place around here they can
It's
go?
a combination. I mean,
So
most people
it's-
downsize when they're 55 when their kids are out of school, and
I mean, places like, like Heritage Village, I mean, that was the place to go, and then all of a sudden everyone's like, I don't want to live with all these old people. Because you see, 55 is obviously very young.
right.
But I've heard that as you get older, that's really makes a difference.
I haven't gotten there yet.
Actually, some of them now are going down to 50 and older.
Yeah, I bet. And Orinoco and Stratford is actually starting to let families in.
Right. Well, I think we need to have that discussion since
Yes.
it's a very large parcel. And
But the issue of the kids in the school system, sort of, if you were to think of having it not limited to 55, and you were going to have some children available in that particular arena, I mean, are you going to overwhelm the schools? And based upon apparently the size of the schools and the population historically versus where it's been and what we've heard from you from demographics, it does appear that there's excess space, just on its face.
There was also, at that session, the gentleman who was brought in, we
Yeah,
talked in terms of
David
housing.
Fink.
Yeah. Said everything that it really doesn't really increase by having mixed housing at the end of the day.
Well, he did say that, but he did talk about the size of the units. I mean, I think what he said was if you're 1 and 2 bedrooms, the numbers are pretty low, if anything at all. I think after you get over 2 bedrooms, then you have the potential.
Yeah, but it's still, in terms of starter, younger families.
Right.
What it would really come down to is how you exactly wrote the zoning regulations for the new village mixed
Right.
and the village residential. And that's where the rubber meets the road. I've seen plenty of zones where, age-restricted housing, you need a lot of 10 acres or more. For multifamily housing, can't be more than 5 acres. And there's a lot of really good creative zoning techniques that you can use when you get to that point of having that discussion and really hammering out the details of the land use regulations, which sort of comes after the whole POCD process.
So then, but, to Buddy's point on all this, I guess everybody's is, what's the wording in this part before we get to the regulations? Because I don't think we want to limit ourselves, but I also don't think we want to hinder ourselves. And we also don't want people to freak out on us.
Just explore limitation, right? Explore age limitation of the village district. Regs, whatever it is, something like that, right?
Or, I mean, how about,
It's not just the village district, though.
a higher density development that would also consider 55.
Including but not limited to.
Yeah, something like that.
You're not moving it.
Yeah.
Yeah, just wave your
You're not
hand
waving your
the right
arms
way.
around.
There you go.
There we go. Okay. Just looking now at, just past the village zoning map on
Right.
transportation.
As soon as you get to the 2 bedroom. Well, so is there a way, I'm sorry.
Yes.
So just show me something that David Fink had passed out. So does this go in the POCD or does it go in the regulations that in order to address the issue with kids in the school, bring more kids to school, saying you can do all these things but no more than 2 bedrooms? Or limit it to 2 bedrooms, or maybe only 15% of the project can be more than 2 bedrooms?
I don't know if you want to get into specific percentages, but I think having in there that what we're envisioning is 1 and 2 bedrooms, and having that in there as a policy statement is totally fine.
Takes care of the school question. At least according to this.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I'm not sure that, it's our bailiwick to suggest we don't want more young kids in the school system that might be able to manage that.
Too, but of course,
Yeah.
that's because there's room in the school. I've been in this process when there's too many people in the schools.
Right, I mean, it's
Yeah.
hard to
Yeah.
get the right number, but, you want to be able to accommodate
Yeah.
what we've talked about, what Fink talked about, which is sort of a diverse community.
But again, that's right, and I think one of the reasons we talked about having 1 and 2 bedroom, either apartments or condos and things like that, is so that they were for people who are single or starter homes. That, and then they move into a bigger house in Woodbridge kind of thing. So it becomes like a feeding thing, so not to discourage the kid thing. All right.
Transportation, we just had a couple of small changes. We wanted to get in under the midterm action agenda, some language about protecting the winding roads that the town has, and how that ties in with the rural character and the aesthetics of the town. And we didn't.
Is this also, actually someone brought up a good point about having a lot of these things referred to in a lot of different chapters. So would we also be talking about, one of the things we talked about was, what are the, and I've talked to a number of people last week, but, what are the vistas that we kind of want to save? And I didn't get any great answers, although everybody thought it was a good idea. But then, in the conversation, I was wondering if the protection of stone walls or protection of certain size caliper trees. In other words, for instance, if you go to the project up on North Racebrook, the old where Stoddard used to live, and if we didn't tell that guy that he couldn't take down the stone walls and he couldn't take down the big trees along North Racebrook Road, it would look just like the rest of the lots, which he pretty much clear cut the whole thing. So we pretty much stopped it from being clear cut from the road all the way up by keeping that stone wall and those trees. So I'm thinking that is actually part of the vista that we kind of want to protect. So, is that something that goes in, I think that goes into actually a number of places.
Yeah, that would be, I'm just looking through here now.
Under natural resources, one ongoing agenda, you have preserve local scenic character, and you say consider regulatory protections for ridgelines and view sheds.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where you would want it to throw in stone walls.
Stone walls would.
And significant caliber trees.
Trees, right. Right. Thank you, Chris. That's a good catch.
Can I go back to your village map just for a minute?
Sure.
On the side of...
The color one or the photograph?
The color one. On the side of Pinellas Pond that is at the base of West Rock, you have development in part of it, but part of the parcels you have as residential BB.
Okay.
And I think it's supposed to be the outline of the pond that's kind of kicking through there.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I would think that, I don't know what the potential development is there, but it would be more logical to leave all of that as development on that at the base of West Rock rather than trying to put it into residential BB.
Okay, yeah, just have it as the dev zone.
Right.
Okay.
At least, you know what.
The DEV.
Right.
Yeah.
Because Terry's talked about the potential of extending Bradley Road up, which has, sewer and has water.
Right.
And then tapping it into there and potentially getting a little bit more commercial development up there.
All right, make that change.
Good. Now, actually, so staying on the revised village zoning.
Yeah.
So, Metler and Landing, we're saying we want to put that back into the village. Does that limit village residential? What are you calling village residential? And if we change the reg so that, like on Lucy Street, we talked about 2- and 3-story and possible rentals or things like that, or live works, is that not considered village residential too?
Well, that's part of because it's part of the village mixed use. Residential would still be an allowed use in the village mix. It would just be things that are a little bit more higher density.
All right.
So we didn't want to extend that higher density down those streets. So.
I have one other question while I'm looking at it. Below Research Drive and above Manila, there's a large tract which you have currently as village residential.
Mm-hmm.
That's currently zoned as green space, I think, or park district. It's actually fields and whatnot.
Yeah, I've driven by. Yeah, it's the baseball field.
So I don't know that you want to realistically put that in as village residential, because I think, it's a very highly used recreational area.
Mm-hmm.
And it probably needs to be
I didn't know
recognized as such.
I had looked at the zoning map. I hadn't seen it as a park zone or anything. So.
Yeah, it's not a big part of town. But it's, I think it's one of the few pieces that is.
And to Chris's point earlier, in regards to the mother church on 69, you have the parking lot and the church split between two different zones, the village mixed and the village residential.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I would think you'd want that those parcels to be the same classification,
Why?
because they're owned by,
But if, I'm not gonna say the church is gonna sell anything, but what happens if they decide to sell it? We kind of want it to be matching the, I mean, they can still keep it exactly the way it's being used. It's not like they can't.
But wouldn't you want it village mixed then instead of village residential?
I would think so.
But it's next to all this residential.
Right, but so is
So
all
what?
that stuff that's currently residential that you're
identified as
changing
a-
to village
before it
mixed.
was identified as a potential opportunity.
I still think it is, but I don't know. I think you would continue the residential. I don't know.
Just thinking of the other properties there. Here, if that makes sense to just have it in the mixed.
Well, it could go either way, because I see on the other side of Landon,
Right.
yeah.
Right,
I see.
exactly.
Okay,
I think we'll switch that to mixed.
yeah. Yeah, you're right.
Okay. Natural resources, I don't think, and that's on, let's see, that's page two.
In transportation, I know that we just passed that, but last time we talked about encouraging bike routes on not just state roads.
That's right, we did have a couple of other ones that were.
So I wonder, I think we should be putting that in here.
Okay. Yeah, I do remember that, yeah, that list, we need to get that in there.
And where does our discussion on sidewalks go?
Sidewalks was in,
Oh, it's actually in here too.
Yeah.
it's under
Under
two,
two.
yeah.
Top list of
Because I think it's really important to be pushing these sidewalks in the center of town. I mean, from the high school to the
Mhm.
library, I think it's like really big deal.
It's there.
Yeah, I know, so I know I see it here. So I didn't, as I was asking.
We also have another mention of it, well, sidewalks in the village too. In the village section, we've addressed that there as well.
So if we're encouraging sidewalks in the village area, does that mean that if someone builds something on there, that becomes part of their project to put in sidewalks?
Yeah, I mean, that can be certainly a part of
And
future
if that's the
development.
case, then would we also want to say we want trees every so often, that kind of thing?
Certainly can do that, yeah. As part of the zoning regulations, yes.
Okay, so you can,
Oh, that's okay. As I mentioned, the not, very little has changed in the natural resources section. And the open space, again, we're trying to finalize this based upon the comments that we've received from Coopop and the Conservation Commission. So that's still, I want to get that kind of locked down this week after talking with them tomorrow, so that we have that in place as well. Just trying to think of anything that we have in here now that changed substantially.
We went from chapter 3 to chapter 5. I know chapter 4 is build out. Is there an action plan for build out?
There really isn't. Build out is just sort of the results of an exercise that is just meant to show if, if everything went exactly according to zoning, what you might end up with. So there really aren't any actionable items that come out of that. The one thing we did have on it was in the chapter, we were going to change the cover picture, which we've done. But that's in just the front page of the chapter, so that's been taken care of.
One thing they mentioned last time, and I noticed that it hasn't changed yet, and I don't know if you'll have time to do it, but the photograph that you've got everything on, someone had mentioned that there's a new building in 1 Bradley Road, so this is an older photograph.
This is the 2014 aerial. That's the latest we're able to get.
It can't be 14, because that building's been up.
Well, this does show the build-out across the street of like where...
Right, but there's a building down here now. There's a building right in here.
Right at the intersection?
Well, it's part of this complex.
Well, there is, and that actually is a condo. That actually is owned by the people in it.
Right,
Yeah.
but I'm just saying, this
Yeah.
picture doesn't,
It's not in there.
isn't recognizing it.
Okay.
It's not that building in the back here? It's not back here?
No, it's right in front, because he put that up once he bought the triangle when they straightened out
Right.
Bradley. So it's, who would notice except us, right? Except maybe the guy who owns the building, says, why isn't my building in there? Under preserve local scenic character, one of the things you mentioned is protections for ridge lines. Did you have any ridge lines in mind? Because outside of West Rock, I couldn't think of any.
I'm trying
That's
to think off the top of my head. You're right. There's...
What do you
Number
actually?
one, last one under.
Chapter
one,
5, under ongoing action agenda.
Okay.
So the chapter 5, yeah.
All right. I'm outside of West Rock. I'm not sure if there are any others.
I mean, I just couldn't think of any, and that obviously is protected being under the
Being under the state
West
park.
Rock Ridge State Park, yeah.
Okay, we'll double check to make sure there isn't.
I mean, I know we got a lot of hills.
Yeah, that there aren't
I
any
couldn't
that
think of any
fall
else
under
ridges,
that.
Yeah.
Right, there's that hill, Round Top or whatever.
Yeah, what about Round Hill?
Yeah.
Might be.
And then the property across the road is really attractive. That's really.
But that's not a ridge.
What?
I mean, they're hills, but they're not ridge, and those may be view sheds.
Just,
Yeah.
Oh, the,
Or Vista.
whose farm is that?
I forget, some doctor who's been here. And they were building that horse barn up on the top of Round Hill. He came and was,
Oh, Peter
No, who's the-
Latronic, but you can't see it from anywhere
No.
except if you're in a plane.
right. For now. That's a fall down.
Well, no, that's
Yeah.
all,
Is that a Bethany or what?
that's all in a
Sorry,
conservation
just
easement.
move, we can move on.
Is the Calabrese property in Bethany?
No,
So that also is a ridge.
majority of it is in Woodbridge.
So
They
that's-
do own land in Bethel.
So that actually is a pretty awesome view or ridge that goes out there.
Okay.
It's a view shed, yeah. Scenic vista.
Okay. We'll take another look at that.
So that would actually be a important piece of property that we were just trying to figure out before. That view is pretty cool. It's great. It's beautiful.
Okay. Good.
I was actually thinking of the piece of property that Toll Brothers came in and was thinking about developing.
You mean on the left-hand side?
Nagarro's,
Yeah.
off Woodbine and Andy.
Right. North of Lucia.
Oh, that's really nice to know.
So can't you see, you can also see
You really
that?
can't see.
But if they developed it, you'd see it.
Yeah. You
So-
might, because the Sorensen farm is in front of it. There's a house, the power lines come through, there's
What
a
about the
house, and then
Sorensen
there's the
farm?
Sorensen farm.
Yeah, that area in there is gorgeous. If anybody developed in there, we wouldn't be protecting our vistas.
How much land is the Sorensen farm?
It's 6 or 8 acres.
8?
6 to 8. It's that house behind it, right? It's behind it, and we're to the west of it, and then north of it. That was that property that they wanted to develop whole cluster housing.
To the
And
east,
that
east
piece
to north.
goes all the
Peace
way
Road.
over to North Peace.
It still has Sorenson
Yeah.
property would be one of the vistas we would want to pay attention to. No.
It's actually the Hubble.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Yes, exactly.
Hubble Farm.
Correct. And he dug
Used to be
deep.
much bigger.
Just looking at chapter 7, the historic and community resources, a couple of changes. One that we put in that that had come up on a couple of occasions was part-time planning director, part-time town planner, who would sort of be charged with taking the action agenda items and kind of having stewardship of those and working with the various departments and boards and commissions and agencies that have been identified as responsible parties for those, and kind of directing that along, as well as just kind of overseeing the land use development process in the town. So that was a point that we've added from last time. We've also moved up the demographic and enrollment trends study from, it had been a midterm action agenda item, but we've moved it up to near term because I think it kind of came out that that's a priority that needs to be tackled sooner rather than later. So we wanted to make that change. This is also going to be a place where once I talk to the Recreation Commission, there may be some additional points in here from the recreation side in terms of facilities and the like. So we'll be adding those in as well after our discussion.
Michael, on the reuse of the old firehouse, you might want to not limit it, where you have beneficial reuse of the old firehouse.
Mhm.
You might want to put a period after that. I
Okay.
guess there's a number of things that are going on, including,
Where are you looking at?
let's move forward on reuse of old firehouse in the near-term item agenda.
Unless you say something like such as.
Well, the thing is that it's kind of a moving target, and I think that there's a lot of ways in which you might be able to reuse it or not. And I think there's lots of discussions going on as to
There
what
was
that
a
can
study
be.
committee on that, and I think.
There is, and some of the, feedback is coming out tangentially as to not only what, but how. And the other thing is the inventory and conditions in the center building. I mean, that's that whole idea of whether or not the police department, is going to get an upgrade and what kind of space they're going to need. And, one of the ideas was we'll move the gym out, but it may not be going into the old firehouse, okay?
Right.
So there may be other places where it could go. And I just
Okay.
think this whole idea of looking at all of the properties that are owned by the town, okay, and what their prospective use and reuse may be, somehow you need to get that out there.
But, so has Coopop addressed those things?
And I'll have to look at their comments that they sent today and see if they've gotten anything in that. The original document that they had provided to the commission, I'm trying to remember if those elements were in there.
I don't recall any mention of it.
I'm not thinking of it that I saw it. Okay.
Is this where you were gonna add something about the clubhouse at the Woodbridge?
That would be another, that would be the spot for this, yes. Clubhouse, CCW. All right. And even though the teen center, flipping to the next page on midterm action agenda, even though the teen center, their building, I believe they own their building, there was still discussion, I think, at the charrette
That is true. It did
about-
come up with the charrettes.
about looking at, possible alternative locations that might be easier for the kids to get to.
In fact, it appears you're suggesting the old firehouse as a location.
Imagine that.
So, yeah, we have kept that in there, unless there's any objection to that.
Just a minor point on the page before, under the hire part-time planning director, you use the term POCD, and I think the commission had asked you to use town plan of conservation.
Okay. Okay. All right. And finally, on Chapter 8, on sustainability, we received a considerable amount of information from the Energy Task Force. Through Betsy Yagla had been kind of our conduit with them, and Tim spoke with them via phone call at one of their meetings. So we got a lot of good feedback from them. Tim, I don't know if you want to just go over some of the high points.
Yes, that's correct.
That's what this.
So they provided us with just sort of a fair bit of background on what was already in place in terms of the Bright Ideas grant, sort of updated us on the condition there and how previous, I think, funding for solar installations had been used for at Massaro Farm. They also just provided us with quite a bit of tweaking on our understanding of where UI had been in terms of their programs and their ideas of where the opportunities would be in terms of systems like solar hot water, solar photovoltaic, and systems like that as something that should be encouraged in the POCD, which we had previously been looking more at geothermal, but they wanted to bring a broader sense of what the technological options would be in terms of promoting alternative energy as well as energy conservation.
Okay, go ahead, sorry. I'm just following.
Let's see, beyond that,
They refer to a bunch of things in here. I mean, this is a 10-year plan.
Mm-hmm.
So when they turn around and publicize existing property tax exemptions for renewable energy systems, then it gives a, how do we know how long that's even going to last?
Which, what number are we under here? Just
2 in the second paragraph. And Connecticut General Statute. Is that a permanent? That's just, I mean, there's grants that we have out there that, can we refer to grants that, I mean, maybe they're not, but.
Well, it is a near-term action. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bolster disaster preparedness, seems to me it should be under the,
1.
not this area. I don't think it's sustainability. I think it should be under historic community resources.
Community resources?
Yeah.
All right. You know, a lot of their feedback was geared towards the text of the chapter too. So they had some language suggestions and things like that.
This is this comment that you quote in here is kind of a little misleading because there's a ton of incentives out there right now for geothermal and solar where the government pretty much pays for 50% of it. So.
Mm-hmm.
I think that speaks to the need to simply publicize the incentives that are already out there.
Yeah, so that quote though is a little awkward because it basically suggests that there aren't incentives.
There aren't
and
incentives.
it actually kind of suggests that the town should create the incentives.
All right. Okay. Well, we can just use the first sentence on that one. Yeah. I'll fix that. All right.
I think it's unfortunate that we don't use geothermal when they do our public buildings either.
Okay, so I understand it's,
This also talks about, this is a fine line about what we're suggesting because it's a POCD, but I mean, who actually maintains the trails now? Does the town not have any responsibility on that?
They have the town trail master.
So shouldn't we kind of refer to that when we talk about managing improved town trails, that we have a
Well,
town
it's not
trail?
a paid position, it's a volunteer position.
But it's a person. I mean, everyone else on this list is volunteer too, by the
We do
way.
have under open space, one of the second bullet is lend town support where possible to private efforts by WLT and WPA to maintain and build townwide trails. Did something go in there? Or is that?
Well, there's a thing on, in ongoing action agenda and sustainability.
Yeah, I know, but
So which one were you looking at?
I was looking at open space.
Which
And it's
chapter?
supporting 6.
Yeah.
And it's the second bullet, support land trust and parks association. I mean, those are related.
Yep, I agree.
I don't know if they go in both places to ensure, that redundancy so people know about it.
Yeah.
This just gets pretty granular.
I know.
I mean, why not we talk about, picking up garbage along the sides of the roads? I mean, there's a lot of things we could do. They talk about hikes and cleanup efforts, but only cleanup events at the water resources. I don't know. I wrote
Well, that's
Jeff an
why
email
I'm
the
wondering
other
if
day,
some of
and I
it's
was-
getting a little, I know, that's right. That's why I'm thinking that some of this stuff gets a little too specific.
I think
but
it gets too
It
specific.
needs to go back to, some of the stuff needs to get a little more broad, and then, but then other things, I think, I want to make sure we cover ourselves.
I think it should be sort of the such as, right? Encourage these efforts such as, green roof and rain gardens. Encourage efforts such as, geothermal wells and solar arrays, PV arrays. I mean, I just think it gets more granular than some sections.
I think it's a good suggestion. And so the task force is making these suggestions, is the assumption is that the town is going to take some responsibility on educating people on these things?
That was my
Just-
question.
Just checking.
Right.
Now I'm really reading it. I wasn't reading it when you had sent me that thing, I hadn't read it yet.
I know. It's the end of a long day.
It does say coordinate and host educational workshops and hikes and events.
If only with our state roads, with the people who decide to open their windows and discard their garbage on a regular basis, but I guess
Well, as
we
long as they
can't
put them
control that.
behind enclosures.
Yeah, right. Well, they don't do that.
Yeah, and so, to your point, there's, the, using the Bright Idea grant funding. Isn't that an example, right?
mhm.
Explore using grants such as,
Okay.
because then it won't, I get this as a near-term action item, but that will also speak to new grants that come along in the future, right?
Right.
That we might want to encourage people to consider using after this one is out and in the remaining 7 years of the plan. I don't know.
Also, why are we just saying assess the adequacy of the center building as an emergency shelter? Because the school right now is going to have a generator and everything, so why should just the center school, it seems to be the school, Beecher would also be an emergency
A
shelter.
lot of times they don't want to have the schools in there because you may have need of a shelter that extends past when school would be open. And so speaking from where I live, because I'm on their CERT team, which is a community emergency response team, we found that we can't use the school. We need to look to other sites where we aren't constricted by what's in the school.
But
You mean
I'm
like
not
people-
saying that you have to use it.
When we had power out and we had to have shelter in place for people, it was a difficult task to use the school, and so we've had to look to alternative places where we aren't having to deal with the fact that power may be back in the school so that the kids are going back to school, but we still need people to shelter.
You're pretty much saying we're not gonna maintain it. I think we should still be maintaining. We're actually spending a lot of money at that school right now
Oh, I know.
in order to use it 24/7, so I don't, just spelling out Center's building basically says that's our only emergency building in school, in the
Just
town.
do,
So
why
I-
is it limited to center? Why don't you just talk about
Just do
town facilities?
and other town
And
facilities.
other-
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
That- Going to what Kathleen said, don't get too specific.
Mhm.
Broader. it
Is the center
better.
school already designated as a,
I couldn't answer.
yeah, I'm curious, maybe, I was wondering if that's why they picked it. But I mean, but again, we're spending a lot of money at Beecher to, you know, for backup generators and everything like that, and solar and that kind of stuff that can be used
That's
in a.
That's covered
Our
under
equipment, the
alternative
cots
sites.
and whatnot is probably in the
Where
center
do you
building.
submit alternative sites?
The last two words.
Who knows, they might be able to put that solar array up on the country club of Woodbridge and in turn make that an emergency shelter at some point in time too. Talk about space
That would
that's
be a pretty
unused.
expensive emergency
Actually-
shelter, but yes.
People
Just
have
go
have to
under-
think very creatively with respect to what they have in this town.
Well, okay, I'm not gonna I don't completely disagree with you, but to me, emergency shelter should be something that's being used for something else 90% of the time, and then only an emergency shelter. You wouldn't wanna pump a whole bunch of money into the Woodbridge Country Club building just so you could say now it's an emergency
Oh,
building.
no.
Okay.
What I'm suggesting is you have a lot of town facilities
I agree.
that are maybe, you know, could be better used.
That's why, just talk in terms of town facilities.
Right.
as opposed
That's
to-
why you do it at that point.
Exactly.
You know, be specific later.
And also, isn't the high school, what is the high school doing right now? Are they doing something to be off the grid or something?
Except the high school's not a town facility.
No, but it is a building in town.
Yes.
So it should be included in.
I think so too.
Is it? Can we
We can explore.
explore?
I think if we're in the middle of an emergency, we'll probably be allowed to open the doors.
Okay, so, a lot to digest, but, again, we wanted to give you the most up-to-date, complete package that we had put together.
Idling reduction policy.
Where are you looking?
There's just so much,
Punching out at you.
these people are into what they do and what they believe, but I think they're really going to.
I agree. And
To-
that was, I mean,
to-
that was my comments from the comments they sent. They were like so,
Specific.
yeah, they were a little too specific, yeah.
Partner with UI. Well, UI isn't the only,
That's right, there's plenty of other.
only
Plenty
provider.
of other options.
Right.
Exactly.
So I just,
So I think you gotta
I'm beating
be
a
more
dead horse
generic.
again.
and
I think we have to get more generic. We want to make our point, but I think we need to be more generic, because I think we limit ourselves to saying we can only do this stuff with the UI.
Okay.
And also, what about, would the POCD be something to want to encourage more gas lines put into town?
I thought I saw that somewhere. Is that in an
Seek
email
to-
or something?
But I mean, it's already here, so I mean,
And seek ways to expand the,
I mean, they're gonna want to do it anyway,
Distribution.
so why wouldn't we want to encourage that? Or does it go into a POCD? Well,
Who's gonna wanna do it?
actually, if you saw that, I mean, I think that a lot of people would rather have natural gas than.
Oh, no, I'm not suggesting about the people, I'm talking about the utilities, as to whether they wanna go in and
If we're
provide.
gonna talk about gas, how about water and sewer lines?
no, people don't want that.
No, I think water and sewer line is completely different.
We do discuss there's a discussion in the text of that, of the community resources chapter about just the high prevalence of oil still being used for heat. I think it's something like 80% of homes are still oil heated here
In Woodbridge?
in Woodbridge.
Well, there's no gas.
Right,
They just brought the gas line here, so.
yeah.
So I think as a general matter, I'm not sure if you want to poll everybody, but I think everybody here would feel that if you extended the gas line, it gives you another option if you wanted to go and have that available. I mean, whether or not everybody signs up remains to be seen, but if it's half the
Well, there's a
price-
number of people on the gas line who actually did hook up to the gas.
Actually, there's been gas for a long time in the flats.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well,
That's where that
I, for one,
20%
would like to see it expanded.
Me
And I think
too.
there's lots more that would like to see it expanded.
Yeah, I would think
And
so.
hopefully it could be done at, nominal cost to the citizen. Right? Put it on the utilities who can, basically factor it into a long-term plan.
I'm going to guess that it is their long-term plan to go more than just a bunch of public buildings in Woodbridge.
I hope you're right.
Okay, we can.
Getting on
we can
that,
certainly
love to see
decide.
another cable company in town.
So Lee, I mean, you guys know this better than I do, but an example of, LEED's given as an example for taking action on energy conservation, but you can also get LEED credits for deconstruction and for using
Correct.
certain renewable materials. So
Where
there's lots of
are you
ways.
looking at that?
Midterm and long-term action.
Okay, so the problem is there are a lot of other, they say Energy Star and LEED, there's actually a
There's a
number
lot
of
of-
other things, and actually there's a whole trend of people who really dislike LEED because it's so expensive.
And to get
It's
solar
really
system.
not good for residential
Right.
projects.
That's where you get what's the one, the living home, that's a Germany-based, where you get the petals of the flower? I forget what that is, but there's a lot of them.
There's a number of them, and that,
But it does have your EEG there, so that's better.
yes, I know, it does say that.
Comma after the G.
Comma after the G.
Right, well, there you go. It's an English teacher anyway.
I'm not an English teacher, I just learned how to do silly
She just
things
learned
like
how to
that.
speak English correctly.
Sometimes.
Okay, so we'll go back tomorrow, start making these changes. Again, I'm going to try to talk to CUPOP, Conservation Commission, probably also tomorrow, and then we'll be going to see the Recreation Commission as well. So I'd like to do is as soon as possible get you sort of a final clean copy of this, just so everyone has one last bite at the apple, and make sure that it meets your expectations.
Can you share it as a Word doc? So that if we find errors and stuff like that, they're easier to share with you?
We have it in a program right now called, I don't know if you know the program, it's called InDesign, which
I know
is,
InDesign.
yeah.
So it's not a Word doc, right? And
It's-
InDesign is harder to.
Yeah, InDesign has the great feature of being very helpful in terms of graphically laying
Right.
things out, and saves a lot of time, and it just looks more, a lot of times we get stuff that looks a
Yeah,
lot.
but you can't, but it's not
But you
like some
can't.
of the programs where you can do,
Track changes
Right,
or
right.
things like that.
For the meeting on the 30th,
Mhm.
what are we going to have available to hand out to the individual, to the people?
We were going to have tables based on topics with each of the topic area action agenda items at those tables.
So it's just the action agenda items rather than the entire section?
At this point, we were thinking of just trying to focus on the action agenda
Okay,
items.
I'm just-
Because we will have the draft POCD, and then, of course, there'll be a comment period on that, and a chance for people to review
Okay.
the text as well. But just to keep it manageable, what were we at, Tim, this morning when I looked? It's like, when you put all of our sections together, we're about 130 pages. So if we had 10 copies of 130 pages at every table, I think that would.
That's a lot of
that'd be
trees.
extremely
Kind of goes
intimidating.
against everything that's.
And I think it would be a little bit too overwhelming.
Is it something that, once you finalize this, we could then post on the website, the town website, so that people would have a chance to review it? Because
Yes,
I think
absolutely.
they need to come.
And I think we might have touched on that at the last meeting sometime and this is coming up, quite fast, mid-September, to give folks at least 2 weeks to be able to.
Although we do
Good
have
stuff.
to kind of review some of those pictures you have in there.
Some of those pictures,
I
yes.
like that one in housing.
Well, he said he changed it.
He said he changed it.
He said he
Justin.
changed it.
I was going to talk to
Yeah.
Nancy about that.
He did.
About how we're going to best get the word
We
out.
listened closely.
It's in build-up.
I thought it was a commercial building.
No.
I don't know
No, no,
if
they have
we
the
may want to talk about getting some A-frame signs up around town,
Take a look at that.
you know, that people would see, especially now that school's back in session. And there might be something we could distribute at school, or if they have a newsletter that goes home.
Yeah, we could do that. We could do something like that.
And the senior center.
Field
Just a free-
also quite.
Yeah,
Uh,
no,
when are
totally
you gonna,
understand.
Talk about a view shed or a
Do
visitor.
the changes and I think this needs to be sent to the commission.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I mean, like, well before the 30th, so I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
What's your timeline?
We're at the 9th, what's today, Tuesday?
Tuesday.
I've lost track. So probably, thinking
Week?
Monday,
Monday.
15th?
15th.
Okay, I'll give you a week. That would be the 16th. Well, I'm just, that would still give you 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So that would actually get it to us on the 16th. We could say that if we have comments or serious concerns, we'll have them back to you by the 23rd.
Yep.
Yep.
Is that cool? That gives you another week.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And then that gives you another week to get to the 30th.
Right.
And when do you want, what are we putting up on the website before the 30th? Anything?
I was going to go with, our final version of this.
Well, it's a draft.
Yeah, draft.
Final
A
draft.
final version of our draft, yes. Right, it's still a draft. And
So if we get
have that
everything
up
back
there.
to you by the 23rd, it could, maybe we should say everything back to you by the 22nd and then get it up on the 23rd? Because I don't think there's going to be that much.
Hmm,
And then that would give a week online.
online.
How does that sound?
We could also put
For
we could put something online maybe a week earlier, talking about the format of what
Yep.
the meeting is going to be like, just so I'd like to give, some substantive stuff up there with a 2-week window, so people have enough time to start thinking about it.
What are we doing to publicize the event?
I was actually going to talk to Betsy Yagla about that a little bit tomorrow. Chris was just mentioning some ideas of, I thought we're good at, getting some A-frame signs, see if we can advertise something like that. We have the
Just
town
make sure they're covered by the regs, huh?
covered by the regs, exactly.
Sorry.
And nobody else follows?
I know, the plethora of signs.
And,
These days.
we have the Facebook page, we have the town website,
We should banner it on the town website.
right, and have it prominently up there.
In the library.
All those things that people want.
So that's on tomorrow's list for sorting out the logistics. So
Always to-dos.
always to-dos, yes.
Thanks.
And then you'll get me a sample of what you want the room set up like. And
Yep,
whatnot.
just like last time.
This is that central.
Mike, are you making a motion to adjourn?
I believe that is beyond the scope of my powers.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye. Thank you. Thanks, guys.
No problem.